Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Sphumelele Zonde with your technology and social media news. We hope you still are sanitizing if you are not in a place with soap and water nearby, and we hope you still are wearing that face mask if you are in crowded spaces. We need to curb the spread of COVID-19. Today I am in Mzimkhulu in southern KwaZulu-Natal. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. In Mzimkhulu, we have been struggling to find network coverage in certain places. We even struggled to make payments at certain locations because they said they did not have network coverage. So this week, our Twitter poll is asking you about network coverage in your area and whether you think it's good enough. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up tonight. We find out about new internet laws that have been signed by President Cyril Ramaphosa, and we also head to Nigeria, a country that blocked Twitter recently. We have details on how Huawei is trying to stay afloat. As we know about their problems in America, they've also launched the Harmony operating system known as Huawei in China. And in our discussion, we look at artificial intelligence. Recently, Twitter deleted a tweet by Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. In return, the Nigerian government blocked Twitter in the country. In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed new laws that aim to govern Twitter. So now you can be criminalized for sharing nudity of people that did not give you permission to share their photos. And also, you can't really incite violence as you wish.
While the possibility of new regulations loom over the technology industry, an increasing number of social media platforms are taking measures to demonstrate their responsibility.
The social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or the public responsibility as to what is published. Because as editor, I cannot determine which contents are posted on Facebook, but Facebook owes the public that responsibility.
Twitter recently faced criticism from some in Nigeria for enabling President Muhammadu Buhari's spread misinformation about Nigeria's civil war 4 decades ago. In response, the company deleted a tweet from Buhari's account for violating its rules. The Nigerian government responded by blocking Twitter in the West African nation. Frank Alianya, a Lagos-based tech journalist, realized last Saturday that he could not access Twitter on his smartphone.
When people now woke up in the morning or that day, the next day, they found, especially if you were using MTN, if you're using Glow, if you're using Airtel and Nine Mobile, those are the 4 telcos that first went off on Twitter. And then after that, the local ISPs like Swift, like Smile, followed in due course because I use Swift. So I was still able to access Twitter even after my MTN stopped working.
A few days later, the Nigerian government announced the suspension of Twitter's operations in the country indefinitely. Analysts say the ban is part of the government's plan to regulate social media.
Well, it was finally in 2019 they presented the social media bill, and that bill currently is in second reading, although we've not heard anything about it anymore because in 2020 there was this backlash on social media, people bashing it, and also there's an allegation that it was a plagiarized work from Singapore.
Here at home, recently President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the Cybercrimes Act into law. The law criminalizes, among others, misinformation on social media and the disclosure of data messages which are harmful.
We do have laws that are in place already with regards to social media, and we have laws that are being implemented. So there are some pieces of legislation that still haven't been enacted yet, but the law as it is still applies to the online space. So there are no separate cyberspace laws, and the body of the law applies to the online space as well. For example, we have the civil offence of defamation, where we talk about a person's reputation, and if it's not truthful, illegal and it causes harm to that person's reputation, and we post it on social media, we can be sued.
Twitter, which has long had a mechanism by which it can flag content disseminated by public figures, used it for the first time against President Donald Trump content.
During this COVID, we've seen President Trump highlight and promote hydrochloroquine as a cure for COVID, for example. Meanwhile, his own medical doctors, people who were leading the campaign, like Dr. Bex, like Dr. Fauci, they came out completely and said, no, there is not enough evidence to promote hydrochloroquine. So if President Trump should tweet about it, Facebook, Twitter have a responsibility to tell the public this is not approved.
Those in the industry in Nigeria say the suspension sends the wrong signal to foreign investors.
In terms of the foreign investment, but there is an estimate by Netflix that each day of that ban, as it keeps going on, cost the Nigerian economy about 2.2 billion naira. So it's 4 days now today.
And most of my businesses are on Twitter. I don't know how going forward it's going to look like.
Netblocks sort of just put out the figures there that for each hour that Twitter stays shut in Nigeria, we are losing 90.7 million naira. Okay, and then for every day that Twitter stays shut, we are losing about 48 billion naira.
From a legal perspective, social media companies have to walk an extremely narrow wire. Following Twitter's suspension, many users in Nigeria are now using virtual private networks or VPN.
I use a virtual private network, man. So I use a VPN. My colleagues use a VPN.
In the past, other platforms have taken similar measures to limit the impact of content they say seeks to undermine public confidence in issues of interest.
We've repeatedly told you about problems that Huawei has been facing in the United States of America, and they started when Donald Trump was still American president. But now they're trying to stay afloat because they've been blocked from working with a number of American companies, especially Google, where they rely on the Android operating system that Google owns. Many smartphones rely on Android. But now Huawei, to respond to this, has launched their Harmony operating system, or Harmony OS 2, and they are known as Huawei in China. They also, though, by the way, are still the top smartwatches brand in South Africa. Huawei hasn't had the easiest of years. The prelude was the American government blocking the Chinese giant from working with a number of American companies. This led to them losing pre-installed Google products. Google owns the Android operating system that's found in most smartphone devices around the world. Huawei tries to downplay this.
In fact, Huawei is still Android, and Android by nature is open source. What has changed is that the core services that run on the back of Android has been changed, which is now called HMS. So Android applications and Android APKs traditionally will still run because Huawei's phones are still Android, even in the South African market.
To respond to the Android debacle, Huawei has launched the Harmony operating system known as Huawei in China. They're hoping it will make them bounce back after the Chinese tech giant lost its #1 spot in the smartphones division. But they've held on to their #1 position in the wearable tech category in South Africa.
Every manufacturer has to strike the right balance between the utility, functionality of the device you're bringing in, quality, as well as affordability or value. And I think Huawei has not just done that just in the wearable segment, but historically, even if in our mobile phone space, we've constantly been able to compete.
To try and keep this top spot, Huawei recently launched their latest flagship smartwatch, the Band 6. They've partnered with SuperSport United, a team in the top 5 of South Africa's Football Premier League standings.
I think these devices are extremely important to us as footballers. I think, training, it's different. We're monitored by heart rate monitors and that, but we do a lot of extra work at home, in the gym. And it's really important to have a watch and understand your body and understand, how to manage your body.
It helps you track your heart rate, it tracks your sleeping patterns as well. So yeah, it's going to help, you know, and it shows obviously if you need more sleep, you need more rest, then that's going to obviously help.
There's been massive growth in the smartwatches industry in the last year, and this was largely fueled by the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced the world to shut down and people out of gyms.
Band 6 is a device that has SpO2 monitoring throughout the day, which is blood oxygen saturation. Especially in today's day and age, we know how important that is to be able to maintain your health and overall well-being. You have 24/7 heart rate monitoring with recommendations. You've got 96 workout modes. All of these incredible functions that are in there, and a fitness coach as well.
Some celebrities say they use watches to track health and fitness when training privately.
Having the watch has made me push myself even more, you know, before I used to train so hard and I realized I was only burning 200 calories, but now I can burn up to 700 calories.
Gone are the times when you had to write down your exercises where, you know, you don't know how to check your heart rate and stuff and your calories. So we've got technology now that can help you do that for you.
The smartwatch market report says this industry is expected to grow at the rate of 19.5% by 2026. Huawei has also announced that a number of their new products will be sold with the pre-installed brand new Harmony OS 2. In our startup corner, we look at an organization that rents out portable chargers at a fee.
We live in a digital era where we depend on our smart devices to communicate and do business, and a low battery on a mobile device is inevitable. A technology company based in Gauteng has come up with a unique solution to the low battery problem when you are on the go.
Easy Power is the first power bank rental solution in Africa. There's a real need for electricity in South Africa. There's a real need for consumers to be online in South Africa, and that was part of the reason why we invented a Easy Power. Load shedding is becoming a huge problem in South Africa, and we need to keep consumers powered and on the go. We have a power bank rental network throughout the country, which means we have power towers situated at various locations. So you could be in a mall shopping, you could take a power bank, use it. The power bank has cables on it. So it has an iOS cable as well as an Android cable. It has USB-C as well as traditional USB, which means you could power almost any device with the Easy Power. Because South Africa is in dire straits in power at this moment in time, Easy Power is absolutely free to our consumers. How it works is you download our app, you scan a QR code, you're then able to take a power bank and charge your phone, and then return the power bank within 48 hours, and will be absolutely free.
What happens if the power bank is not returned within 48 hours?
There is a daily charge until the power bank is returned, and that charge is 18 Rand per day. Our power banks are 5,000 milliamp power bank. What that means is you could typically get a full charge on your cellular phone. If your battery is at 0 and you plug in one of our devices, you'll get all the way up to 100% charge on one of our power banks. So currently the power banks are located in Gauteng. We've done that to do a soft launch to see how the market reacts to the fact that you could actually take a power bank, go with it, take it home, and then return it. So we've done a soft launch and it was pretty successful, but we are looking at moving out of just urban areas and moving it to the people that really need the solution.
It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. After the break, we chat about artificial intelligence. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Welcome back. Now, we live in a world where artificial intelligence often determines how we can live our lives and takes some of our decisions for us. Now, do you remember a time when Google algorithm was accused of some racial bias? They say that is largely sorted out now. You might find that when you are on an online store, certain goods get advertised to you, and this might purely be based on where you live, not because of who you are as an individual or a person. That's all artificial intelligence algorithm at work, and ethics around AI have been coming under scrutiny a lot of late. Now, to help us understand this a little bit better is Kelly Lu. She is the Business Solutions Manager at SAS in South Africa. Now, Kelly, thank you very much for being a part of our network. Maybe if you can start by telling us how and what AI algorithm is and how it actually works.
With the nature of AI algorithms, the way that it works a bit differently is that we're no longer telling the computers explicitly what to do. So traditionally, we used to, hard code some rules, step 1, step 2, and we know exactly what these computers are doing. So with newer technologies, more computing power, we're now able to give data to the computers, to the AI, and ask it to learn from the data. So we can ask it to predict something or to find out what might happen in the future, but we're not explicitly teaching them how to do it. We're just saying, here's the data, go figure it out for yourselves. So that is the main difference between the newer forms of AI that we're using and the more traditional algorithms that we use.
Kelly, do you think a lot of organizations look at ethics when developing their AI, or do you think that this is just an afterthought for many of them?
For some organizations, AI ethics is coming to the forefront. Over the last, I would say, 2 years, it's really been a hot topic because we've seen some organizations around the globe get burned for it. As customers, we want transparency. We want to know why I was made this offer. I want to know if I'm interacting with an AI and if an AI is making decisions for me. And if it is, I want to know if it's fair. So as customers, we have a lot more power these days. With social media, we have a very loud voice where we can make complaints. And for organizations, I think it's becoming more and more important to have those answers if our customers ask us. So I do believe that it's something that's going to be around for the next couple of years, and organizations are going to become much more mature and place much more focus on AI ethics in general.
What's AI bias? How does it come about? And maybe if you can share some examples for us as well, Kelly.
It's essentially the prejudice that we have towards certain people, certain things, or even certain ideas. And as humans, we all have some level of bias, which means data is biased because all data is human-generated data, or at least human-influenced. So if we think about it, if we keep using this data to make decisions, what we end up doing is we just continue the bias and we even amplify it going forward, which is really unfair. So as an example of bias that has happened before is where I'm not going to say who, but an organization took a lot of customers' data to identify who should be granted a loan and who should be rejected based on who is likely to default. And something that was very unlikely was that the AI actually placed a lot of emphasis on zip codes or the area that the person grew up in or where they're living, and which is really unfair because you can have a perfect credit score, you can be very responsible, and you can be perfectly capable of paying back this loan. But purely because of the zip code that's been attached to you, you have been declined. So those are just really bad mistakes that AI have made in the past. But also there's some more comical things like, we've all seen some of the hilarious examples where people, they buy, let's say, a toilet seat on an online shopper. And since then, they just keep getting emails about additional toilet seats where the AI thought if you bought one, surely you must want another. So some of them are lighthearted and really harmless, but others are just really damaging and really completely can change a person's future, which is really not okay.
Within an organization, who should be responsible for these ethical AI decisions?
If we think about analytics and AI over the last couple of years, it's really become a team sport. Maybe a long time ago, you might find 1 or 2 data scientists tinkering away on an AI system end to end, so they're just responsible for the entire thing. We don't really see that today anymore. More often, you would find a team of people with different skills coming together to create the AI. And these people can include data scientists, data engineer, IT developers, and a lot more personas. So this means that the responsibility doesn't just fall onto a single individual, but the entire team. Everyone involved in delivering that AI is responsible to ensure what is created is ethical.
What would you say is better, human influence or a lot of decisions being left to artificial intelligence?
As a data scientist myself, I really enjoy creating AI, and I think there's a lot of potential that AI can bring us. We've already seen, the role that AI has played in recent times with COVID and the pandemic, and there's definitely a lot of value that we need to keep exploring. But at the same time, I think that we need to put humans into the equation as well. It's really about the collaboration of AI and human that brings out the most value.
And lastly, Kelly, how would you say that going forward, organizations can ensure good practice in all of this?
Organizations really need to look at their frameworks as a whole, especially the leaders in these organizations. Often people think, well, these leaders are not really touching these AI systems. How can they have influence on what the AI is doing? Well, for me, the leaders are one of the key aspects. They need to ensure that there is a responsible culture within their organization. So they need to hold their employees responsible, and that everyone plays their part to deliver good, responsible AI. But also they need to push for these frameworks and these good best practice processes to ensure that their employees knows exactly what they need to do and do everything that in their power to make sure that they are not treating their customers unfairly through an AI. And I think a lot of times we talk about responsible AI, but if you actually think about it, it doesn't really make sense, because we talk about responsible drivers. We don't talk about responsible cars. So it's essentially we need to push for a responsible organization.
All right, Kelly Lou, Business Solutions Manager at SAS. Thank you very much for being a part of our network. And with that, let's take a short break. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. We hope you still are wearing that face mask, especially in crowded spaces, sanitizing and washing your hands constantly. Let's take a look at what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
Venice has long been a peril from the waves that motorboats create along its canals, eroding the foundations of historic buildings and threatening them with collapse. A new electric boat that flies above the water, presented during the Salome Boat Show, might be a solution. Erosion, a problem known as motor addosso, is caused by the wakes of motorboats, water buses washing against the walls of buildings along Venice canals. The boat travels silently on battery power using a minimal amount of energy and creating a wake less than 5 centimeters high, similar to traditional rowing boats. Now in the US, Apple says it will offer the ability to store state-issued identification cards digitally on phones. It also showed updates to its FaceTime video chat app, adding the ability to schedule calls with multiple attendees. The move, which puts Apple in more direct competition with companies like Zoom Video Communication that gained prominence during the pandemic, was the first major announcement from Apple's annual meeting for software developers. The company said users will be able to scan state-issued ID cards in participating US states, and the cards would be encrypted in users' digital wallet. It is working with the US Transportation Security Administration to accept the digital IDs at airports.
As we've been struggling with the network coverage of different mobile network providers here in Mzimkhulu, and as we also have been struggling to make card payments in certain spaces, as they've also said that they've been experiencing network issues. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you how network coverage is in your area. 14% of those that responded to our poll say it's good in their areas. We have 46%, that's the overwhelming majority, who say it's terrible, so they have terrible network coverage where they live. At 31% are people who say it depends on the time of the day. And in last place are people who say they don't pay attention to it. All right, and that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Remember to continue wearing that face mask. Wash your hands with soap and water. If you don't have that nearby, you must use your hand sanitizer, as we do need to curb the spread of COVID-19. And that's it. That's all we have for you. For me, Phumela Lezondi and the rest of the network team right here in Mzimkhulu in southern KwaZulu-Natal. Stay home and stay safe. Have a good one. It's good night.